Hare Krishna, everyone. So, for my own purification, Marge has very kindly allowed us to give class. So, I'm gonna let you know the verse that we'll be speaking from. Just find it right now. And we are very fortunate to be in the wonderful holy Dham of Sri Dham Mayapur. Yeah. So we're gonna be reading from this verse. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 2, text number 16. Okay, so we're going to read the Sanskrit word for word translation, the purport, and then we're going to discuss from there. It's interesting. There was a program that Chandramauli Maharaj did earlier today, and he mentioned this verse, which I thought was a very wonderful verse to speak on. It's also a way of reminding ourselves about the power of this particular point. So what I'll do is I will just offer respects to Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas. Then we'll go through this, we'll say Mangalacharan, and then we will read. Okay, maybe I should type this on myself. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so one of the most famous verses of the Bhagavatam. I'll read the Sanskrit, then we will go through the word for word, the translation, and then go on from there. Shushuso Shradhadanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syan Mahatsevaya Vipraha Punyatirtha Nishevanat. Okay, Shushushro, one who is engaged in hearing, Shradhadanasya, with care and attention, Vasudeva, in respect to Vasudev, Kata, the message, Ruchihi, affinity, Syat, is made possible, Mahatsevaya, by service rendered to pure devotees, Vipraha, O twice born, Punyatirtha, those who are cleansed of all vice, Nishevanat, by service. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The conditioned life of a living being is caused by his revolting against the Lord. There are men called Deva, or godly living beings, and there are men called Asuras, or demons, who are against the authority of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 16th chapter, a vivid description of the Asuras is given, in which it is said that the Asuras are put into lower and lower states of ignorance, life after life, and so sink to the lower animal forms and have no information of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. These Asuras are gradually rectified to God consciousness by the mercy of the Lord's liberated servitors in different countries, according to the supreme will. Such devotees of God are very confidential associates of the Lord. And when they come to save human society from the dangers of godlessness, they are known as the powerful incarnations of the Lord, as sons of the Lord, as servants of the Lord, or as associates of the Lord. But none of them falsely claim to be God themselves. This is a blasphemy declared by the Asuras, and the demoniac followers of such Asuras also accept pretenders as God or his incarnation. In the revealed scriptures, there is definite information of the incarnation of God. No one should be accepted as God or an incarnation of God unless he is confirmed by the revealed scriptures. The servants of God are to be respected as God by the devotees who actually want to go back to Godhead. Such servants of God are called Mahatmas or Tirthas, and they preach according to particular time and place. The servants of God urge people to become devotees of the Lord. They never tolerate being called God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was God himself, according to the indication of the revealed scriptures, but he played the part of a devotee. People who knew him to be God addressed him as God, but he used to block his ears with his hands and chant the name of Lord Vishnu. He strongly protested against being called God, although undoubtedly he was God himself. The Lord behaves so to warn us against unscrupulous men who take pleasure in being addressed as God. The servants of God come to propagate God consciousness, and intelligent people should cooperate with them in every respect. By serving the servant of God, one can please God more than by directly serving the Lord. The Lord is more pleased when he sees that his servants are properly respected, because such servants risk everything for the sake of the Lord and so are very dear to the Lord. The Lord declares in the Bhagavad Gita 1869 that no one is dearer to him than one who risks everything to preach his glory. By serving the servants of the Lord, one gradually gets the quality of such servants, and thus one becomes qualified to hear the glories of God. The eagerness to hear about God is the first qualification of a devotee eligible for entering the kingdom of God. It's a very, very powerful purpose. So we'll say prayers, then we're going to discuss. So, as devotees, we have a goal, we have a prayojana, and with every particular goal, there's a means to achieve the goal. And what happens over the lifetime of a devotee is just like when you see something on a screen. At first you see it on the screen, but the image isn't very clear. You can make out something is there. You can make out, okay, this is a vehicle, it's a car, or this is a person, but it's not in sharp focus. But there are verses in the Bhagavatam, in the scriptures, which give the means to the goal, and they bring that image, that particular process, or that particular practice, they bring it into what we call sharp focus. So this is one of those verses that give the Abhidheya in very clear and vivid focus. The difficulty that many of us have as devotees is that we still think that we are the center of the universe, which means that subtly we still think that we're God. Now, when we say that to people, often if you say it about the outside world, people will say, yes, I understand that. If you say that about devotees, it's not really understood. So we want to make this a little bit more explicit and then talk about it in relation to this verse. So when I think that people should do whatever I think is the best idea, right? That's playing God, because it's working on the basis that I'm the authority, I'm the one who knows the answer, I'm the center of the universe. Therefore, if I say it, everything else and everyone else should operate around my intention. Another way it plays out is when we have our idea about how life should work. So if I say that things shouldn't be like this, things shouldn't work this way, it should work a different way, whenever I impose my idea above what the scripture says, that's also myself playing God. So in many subtle ways, even if we're not conscious of it, in many subtle ways, that deeply rooted mentality that I'm the center of the universe, I'm the authority, and what I say should be what's done, that deeply rooted mentality is our desire and our tendency to play God. Even the most seemingly nice person has that mentality. It's not just people who are openly controlling, but even the people who seem to be not controlling. It's like, I'm a nice person, therefore everyone should like me, everyone should leave me alone, and everyone should treat me a certain way. That's also playing God, because it's all based upon the idea that things should be the way that I say that they are. And then, for that reason, we also have a misunderstanding about Krishna consciousness. And it's a misunderstanding that causes us a lot of stress. The misunderstanding that we have about Krishna consciousness is that we are achieving the goal by our own effort. You see? I will become pure by my effort. I will become great by my effort. I will realize Krishna by my effort. This verse completely changes that perception. What this verse is saying is that we will become pure by someone else's mercy. You see? The emphasis completely shifts from what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. The emphasis completely shifts to what someone else is giving to me. And then the question becomes, well, don't we still have to put effort in? And the answer is yes. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that, but it's a special type of effort. So I was listening to a seminar on Madhurya Kadambini, and there was a very wonderful analogy that was given. And the analogy was that you're drowning and someone throws you a rope. Okay, that rope that is thrown to us, that rope is the rope of mercy. Now, the rope has been thrown, so where does effort come in? The effort is our willingness and our eagerness to hold onto the rope and to take full advantage of the rope to pull ourselves out of our drowning state. So more important than our endeavor is grace. But the grace is fully appreciated by the endeavor that we make as devotees. So how does this work practically? This verse is talking about service, serving those devotees who are completely freed of all vice. The association of pure devotees is a direct manifestation of the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We often take it for granted that there are devotees around in our communities, different people come and visit. That mentality is the basic cause of our inability to take full advantage of Krishna's mercy. So think of Krishna's mercy. We gave one example as the rope. Another example is someone hands you some money. Okay, now the question is, how do you invest the money that you've been given? There'll be some people, you hand them some money, they'll squander it. Some people, you hand them some money, they'll buy things that they don't need, they'll waste it. But then the other thing is also true. There are some people, they're so sharp. If you give them £1,000, they will go and they will invest that money, and that £1,000 will become 10,000. It'll become 100,000, it'll become 1,000,000. But they were all endowed with the same initial sum. You see? So in business, it always works like this. When people want to start up a business, they have to get some seed funding or some venture capital funding. They have to get some basic amount of money that they can use because they want to start a business, but they don't have a business right now. And to establish that business and to make it profitable, they need an investment prior to the business launching, right? So our business is to attain love for Krishna. But in order for that endeavor to be successful, we need some seed capital. We need someone to make an investment in us, and then we need to use our effort, specifically our focus and our endeavor has to be used to turn that investment, that initial sum, and make it something which is incredibly valuable. And this verse is explaining how this happens. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, look at this is very interesting. A careful study of the scriptures will always reveal that you always have a sambandha, a situation. You always have an abhideya, an activity, and you always have a prayojana, a goal or an outcome. So by such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. This is very, very significant. The majority of devotees think that the taste for chanting will come purely, or the taste for hearing will come purely by their own effort. Yes and no. It will come by their own effort if their effort is directed towards the service of pure devotees. See? along with the practices. And what happens is when we engage in such service and do it also with the proper mood, and in the purport, Prabhupada speaks about that Krishna is even more pleased than when we are serving such great devotees than he is when we're serving him directly. And he explains in this purport why. I'm just going to go to that particular place. Let's see. I'm just looking to see if it's in this first paragraph. Anyway, we read this earlier. He said it's because the servants of the Lord, they're taking all risks in order to serve him. So he's even more happy that his servants are respected than if we respect him himself. So I want you to have this vision. There's a very interesting book, Sankalpa Kaumudi by Shivram Swami, and he touches upon this in one of the chapters. I want you to think of it like a triangle. So on one side of the triangle, a practicing devotee, a sadhaka. Now, across from us is the pure devotee, the spiritual master. So what's the exchange between us and Guru? The exchange is selfless service. The exchange is inquiries, right? The exchange is hearing. That's what we bring, okay? So serving the pure devotee, the spiritual master. Now, what happens from there? The spiritual master, he petitions Krishna, Ishvara, who's above all of us. So him being pleased, he petitions Krishna. And then what Krishna does, Krishna, seeing that his devotee is satisfied with the service, Krishna then descends his mercy upon the person who's serving his pure devotee. So our relationship with Krishna comes and becomes intensified and realized through the grace of the pure spiritual master. Very, very powerful point. By rendering such service, one gains an affinity, and Prabhupada translates that word affinity, ruchi. One gains an affinity, and we know also ruchi means what? Ruchi means taste. One gains an affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. You see, what we're speaking about here is not just the medicine. It's not enough to have medicine. Some people have been very, very sick and they've been given medicine and they've remained ill. So you may think that doesn't make any sense. The person's sick and they've been given medicine, but they remain ill. There's a very good reason why that happens. The reason why it happens is because there's two dynamics when you have an illness and when you have medicine. One dynamic is having the medicine. The other dynamic is taking the medicine in the way that it's prescribed. Only when these two things are there consistently do we become expertly and effectively and efficiently healed. So our sickness is materialism, okay? And then we have the medicine of bhakti yoga, the medicine of devotional service to Krishna. But what we then have to do is make sure we take the medicine consistently, make sure we take the medicine as purely as possible, and make sure we take the medicine as properly as possible. And this is really the explanation here. The root of the roots of devotional service is the sadhu sangha. I repeat, the root of the roots. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's this verse, sadhu sangha sarva shastra koi, lava matra sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hoy. Lava matra, it said that even a moment's association with such pure devotees is enough to give all perfection. So the root of the roots is the association of devotees. And this is why anyone, think about it carefully, anyone who is able to understand how to associate properly will get the maximum output, will get the maximum effect of all of their devotional activities. Again, think about the analogy. Everyone's getting the medicine. Some people expertly take it. Some people don't expertly take the medicine. It's not that everyone gets the medicine, so everyone gets the same result. No. Everyone gets the medicine. And then the next question is, what did you do with the medicine? This is the magical formula. how did you take the medicine? Okay, the materialist, you could say they don't even have the medicine. The devotees, they have the medicine, and then it's a question of how they take it. So in terms of the three levels of devotees, Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttama, what's the difference? In Nectar of Instruction, Prabhupada explains that the Kanishta Adhikari, he or she, they do not know how to deal with the devotees properly. They do not know how to associate properly in the Vaishnava Sangha. That means that they're not able to take full advantage of the medicine because they don't know how the medicine should be taken properly. They get something, and if they're sincere, they will progress. Madhyams, what does it say about the Madhyamadikari? Gives mercy to the innocent, avoids the envious, and this is interesting, and is always engaged in serving the pure devotees. This is the connection with this verse. This is one of the key things that indicates this is how Madhyams function. Avoiding the envious, right? Makes friendship with the devotees, always engaged in serving the pure devotees. And therefore the Madhyam Adhikari has this. He or she, because of the service and the association, they develop this ability, this attraction for the messages of Vasudeva. If you could scroll right down to the bottom of this purple, because it explains this in a bit more detail. The last paragraph. Okay, let's leave it here. So it says here, the servants of God come to propagate God consciousness, and intelligent people should cooperate with them in every respect. By serving the servant of God, one can please God more than by directly serving the Lord. The Lord is more pleased when he sees that his servants are properly respected, because such servants risk everything for the service of the Lord and so are very dear to the Lord. The Lord declares in Bhagavad Gita 1869 that no one is dearer to him than one who risks everything to preach his glory. Now, this is the line I was looking for. By serving the servants of the Lord, one gradually, so it's not overnight, but it definitely grows. One gradually gets the quality of such servants. Just think about what this means. This means that whatever qualities or characteristics we would like to develop, all we need to do is serve advanced devotees who have those qualities, and serve them sincerely without material motive. By serving the servants of the Lord, this is Prabhupada speaking here, one gradually gets the quality of such servants, and thus one becomes qualified to hear the glories of God. The eagerness to hear about God is the first qualification of a devotee eligible for entering the kingdom of God. Very, very powerful point. So most people, including us as devotees, most people, we have association by accident. But what is being spoken of here is association by aspiration. So what do I mean association by accident? Whoever we happen to be around, in whichever community we happen to be visiting, at whatever time we happen to be there, we just bump into someone and just become, we'll just drift in that association. What's being spoken of here, what's being really directed for us here, what's being told to us here, is that we should actually make a conscious effort to find such great devotees of the Lord, and then to do what? To become the servant of such personalities. And what is being spoken about here is that is how one develops a taste. My spiritual master, he said that it's very, very important to associate with advanced devotees. And then he said, well, what happens in any association is you have the aura contact. So all of us have a subtle body. We have a consciousness. We're thinking about different things. We're meditating on different things. And we have something that we have some degree of devotion that we've imbibed in the consciousness. So when we associate with those who have a much stronger devotion that they've imbibed, and we associate favorably, then the service allows the nourishment that they have already accrued to enter into our own consciousness. I remember Tribhuvnath Prabhu, who's one Prabhupada disciple who passed away. He said, and I think he was quoting Prabhupada, he said, our service is our umbilical cord to Krishna. Now think about that. What happens in terms of the umbilical cord? It is the means through which all the nutrients come to the child. It is the means by which all the nutrients that the child needs enters into the child's own body. So in a similar way, this is how we become nourished. This is the real secret of Krishna consciousness. This process, this verse, this is a real secret of Krishna consciousness. Shushuto Shraddhanasya, this idea of rendering service to the pure devotees, getting instruction from them, doing menial service, whatever we can do in this particular area. And the more we can do it, that's quantity, that's one factor. But also the mode or the mentality in which we're doing it, that's quality. Both aspects make a difference to how much we are able to take full advantage of their mercy. So we're in an incredibly fortunate situation, but at the same time, we often miss the nuances. The scriptures are like a map, and the pure devotee is like gold. So what does the scripture do? The scripture allows you to understand, okay, this is where you are on the map, and over here, this is where the gold is. So you can either get the map to find out where the gold is, or you can actually be handed the gold. And Krishna consciousness is so powerful that Krishna does both. And how does he do this? Shrimvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayatasto Abhyadyani Hridanoti Sarita Satan. Right? So this idea of destroying all the impurities comes by serving who? The person Bhagavat and the book Bhagavat. We serve both. So the book Bhagavat gives you the map. It tells you this is where you can find gold. And when we approach the person Bhagavat and we serve, that person Bhagavat is gold. He gives gold. So both things go on simultaneously, then the full potency of spiritual life is reached. So what is the practical takeaway? The real import of this verse and the real import of this purple itself is that we should not make the mistake that most devotees do. Most devotees, the mistake is we become passive in spiritual life. So we wait for someone to come to us. But people who read and study these books with conscious awareness, it makes them by definition proactive, because what that means is that then we become a cooperator in our own salvation. How? Because we go looking for such association. We no longer become passive individuals in spiritual life, drifting through the movement, drifting through the community, drifting through the practice. Instead, we get the message from Krishna in the books. Oh, okay, the Krishna consciousness, the secrets of Krishna consciousness are locked up in the heart of a pure devotee. Srila Prabhupada was in, I believe it was ISKCON London. He was in London, and it was before the deities Radha Londoneshvara, and he turned to the devotees and he said to them, he said, I'm holding Krishna captive in my heart. Now you come and take. So the point is that this is actually the meaning, that the pure devotee, he has Krishna, and if we engage in sincere and selfless service to that pure devotee, by his being pleased, he will also give us Krishna. This is the root of all aspects of devotional service. So it's not that we don't do anything else. We do all of it, but we're trying to do it, and we're trying to do it to please the pure devotee. We're trying to follow the order to please the pure devotee. Whenever we can, we should go and get the direct association. And if we're always in that mood, and if we're proactively pursuing it, then Krishna will give us such grace and mercy that the advancement will be deep, the advancement will be guaranteed. And think about it carefully. This is such a powerful point. Work is not work when there's taste. Many devotees, if they're honest, you ask them, how's Krishna consciousness? They'll say it's a bit of a struggle, it's this and this. What does that mean? It means that there isn't taste. When you have a taste for something, it changes the entire experience of whatever you're doing. Think about that point very carefully. when you have a taste, when we have a taste for something, that one factor, it transforms a burden into a pleasure. And this is what we can get from such association. And from that point onwards, Krishna consciousness is not something that we have to do. Krishna consciousness fully becomes something that we always want to do, are inspired to do with great determination. It all comes down to this one principle. It comes down in every aspect. And this is a principle that rules the entire world. The whole world is ruled by this one principle of association. Who you associate with and how you associate. And again, I want to emphasize here, it's not just association with devotees. That's the category. But this verse is saying that within the category, we want to associate with exalted devotees. Yeah, that's the point. It's just like you want to send your child to a school. There are many schools, but actually we all know there's a difference between a normal school and a top ranking school. When you go to a school where it's a high ranking school, you have the best teachers, the most serious students, then just the entire wave and culture of the environment will push you to be your full or to express your fullest potential. So the practical purport of this verse and this purport is that every single one of us should always be seeking out advanced association, and we should always have a mood of humble and menial servitude in that advanced association, and we should be eager to hear and chant and serve in that association. And that one thing done consistently will give us taste, spiritual taste, and that spiritual taste will literally transform the entire experience of our whole spiritual life. And I think many of us, we had glimpses of this at different times, whereas where we're in advanced association, we get a glimpse of this. But what we should do, according to this particular verse and purport, is do that regularly, do that consciously, and do that consistently. We all have an opportunity to enter into a new episode in our spiritual life. This verse and this purport is the secret to entering into a completely new chapter. How? Again, by consciously, proactively, and sincerely seeking out advanced association at every possibility and hearing and serving in that association. This is the number one secret to the greatest quality of consistent spiritual advancement, not because I'm saying it, but because this is what Vyasadeva is saying in the verse, and this is what Prabhupada is elaborating on in his own purport. I'll say one more point and we're open to questions. I was watching Memories of Prabhupada, and there was a question. Actually, it was either Memories of Prabhupada or I was reading it. Anyway, someone asked Prabhupada about Guru. And then Prabhupada, he told one of his disciples, he asked him to read about in the Bhagavatam where it talks about Narada Muni. How did Narada Muni become this great devotee? He was assisting his mother in serving great devotees, the Bhaktivedantas. And because they were pleased by him, they were pleased with the service, therefore this affinity, as is explained here, this affinity for hearing and chanting about Krishna entered into his heart. This is the number one secret of spiritual life. Okay, so we'll stop there and maybe open up for any questions or comments. Do you have any questions, any comments?
Yeah. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for the very wonderful class. It's a really powerful class, Prabhuji. Thank you for explaining how intensify our relationship with Lord Krishna by serving. We should serve advanced devotees with no material desires and selflessly become servant of that pure devotee. Yeah, thank you so much again for the wonderful class. So many nice points you have shared today. Dear devotees, any questions, comments, realizations, please go ahead. You can unmute or you can type in the chat box.
I think Raj has his hand up.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Raj Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hey Krishna, thank you very much. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for that wonderful class, Prabhu. I was thinking when you were talking about serving the pure devotees, and I was thinking, what do you actually mean by serving the pure devotees? In that most service is not really personal service. So do you mean like following the instructions of the pure devotee?
Yeah. So there's a few things. Following the instructions of a pure devotee is definitely service to the pure devotee. Hearing the classes of a pure devotee, especially if we can do it in person, that is also service to a pure devotee. Rendering any menial service that the person needs is also service to a pure devotee. You see, so there's many things. Even just going to the class and sitting down and listening, not just hearing with rapt attention. Prabhupada says the words that are coming from that person, that pure devotee. All of these things will absolutely guaranteed to help us to make spiritual advancement. Absolutely guaranteed. And otherwise, ignoring that, then it becomes much more of a burden or work to move forward. But asking for instructions, inquiring also, right? So the 6 loving exchanges, so asking questions, making spiritual inquiries to such pure devotees, yeah, hearing their classes, as I said, all of these things constitute service to such pure devotees. Actually, one acharya says even seeing them, even seeing the face or seeing being in the presence of such a pure person is also service. It's actually stated like that in one place. So it's a very, very powerful thing. Yeah, does that answer your question, Raj?
That's very nice. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Any questions? Any questions, devotees? Please go ahead.
It seems that no one else has any questions.
Yeah, I don't see any questions. I can, if no questions, can I ask a question, Prabhuji? It's okay.
Yes.
I don't see any questions. I mean, so many important points you have shared today, and so much to learn and meditate. So, like here you mentioned, like imposing our idea about scriptures, right? We are reading, we are listening to the lectures of the pure devotees, but still we have, since we are conditioned, even though we are trying to understand, I think, but still, since we are conditioning, so somewhere like we put our ideas to understand the scriptures. So is that right? I mean, because since we are not very purified, even though we are getting the instructions, but still based on our experiences, based on our realizations, we try to understand them.
That's okay. The point is that the purification is a process. So it's more important that we're sincere and that we're doing the best we can from whichever point we're beginning. But because we're sincere, what will happen is over time we'll become purified, and as we get more purified, our understanding will improve. And Krishna says that Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yenamam Priyanti Te. He said, to those who serve me with devotion, I give them the knowledge by which they can come to me. So first, we try to serve with devotion, i.e. by pleasing his devotees. And then when he's pleased that, oh, they're trying to serve my devotees, what he does is he reciprocates by giving us more and more clarity on what Krishna consciousness is and how it should be executed.
Okay. Okay, Prabhuji.
I think Namrata has a hand up for a question.
Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Maya Prabhupada. Prabhuji, I was just thinking about you told about controllership. There can be situations when there are a lot of people, when a lot of people around you, they are, controlling you. It might be there because they are elders. It might be because they are in authority to you, but they may not be they may not be devotees, but they are, they are in the position to control you. So how to understand, and how to understand that we should reciprocate, or we should limit our listening or hearing to this much. And because we as a devotees, we have some limitations and all. We should follow this much, we should not do this much. So they have some expectations, they have some controllership. So how, we cannot avoid them. They're not they are unavoidable, but then how to be still within your arena?
Yeah, so what you have to do, there's a few things. One is for the specific situation, you need specific guidance on your specific situation. That's the first point. So that's the detail, right? Because we have to know exactly what's going on, how are people controlling, etc., and what's possible. But the general principle is that you take care of your duties, where you have certain duties that you have to deal with, certain people. If you have certain responsibilities to certain people, you take care of it, but you do it in such a way that it does not cause unnecessary obstacle to your hearing, chanting, etc. in Krishna consciousness. So in any area of life, there has to be balance, you see? If, for example, I neglect my duties, and as a result of neglecting my duties, I then have more entanglement, then that was not wise, you see? But at the same time, if I'm just doing my duties, but I'm not actually giving regular and quality time for my spiritual life, that's also a problem, you see? So the general principle is, how do I balance the genuine responsibilities I have? If they're genuine responsibilities, how do I deal with them in a way which is which is respectful of the people, of the need of that responsibility, but doesn't become so big that I don't have time for my hearing and chanting and my service. And then sometimes, to be honest, the other thing to bear in mind is, ultimately, our first and foremost responsibility is to Krishna. Yeah. So anything that we do, we try and do it in such a way that it does not become an unnecessary obstacle for us to complete our first and foremost responsibility. Okay. But for a specific situation, you need specific guidance. So that's where spiritual master comes in, or shiksha gurus, mentors, that you explain the situation specifically, and then they can say, for your specific situation, I advise that you do A, B, and C. Does that make some sense?
Yes. Yeah, it does make sense. So how much is it relevant to, because we are always stuck up in material things. And when it comes to spiritual master, I feel you should limit your, discussions to not be material and rather just spiritual guidance. So
yeah,
is it?
But the thing is, if something material is an obstacle, then you need spiritual guidance to remove the material obstacle.
Okay.
You see, that's the whole point. So if it's actually in the way of one's spiritual life, I'll give an example. In the Bhagavatam, it's explained that Bharat Maharaj, he fell down from he was at Bhava Bhakti, right? He'd been royalty, so he'd given up his palace, his kingdom, his family, everything. So then the question is, how is it that he could become attached to a deer? He's given up so much more than a deer. So how is that possible? One of the explanations given is that when he started to become attached to the deer, which is material, right? He did not take guidance from his teachers, from his seniors. He didn't go to them and say, I'm developing this attachment to a deer. How do I overcome it? You see? So if we take what you were saying, you could say, oh, it's material. Yeah, but it's still relevant because it's in the way of him actually practicing his devotional service. You see, that's the point. And of course, you know, some things you can go to the spiritual master with, but there are many things you can also share with your senior God, you know, elder, more advanced God brothers, God sisters. But as long as you get the relevant guidance so that you can manage the situation and still keep moving forward in your Krishna consciousness, that's the key point. Yeah. So whoever can give guidance that is relevant, that will help you to progress in that area, that's what you're looking for. Does that make some sense?
Yes, yes. Thank you. It does. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I don't see any questions, Prabhu. If it's okay, I just have one last quick question. Can I ask about association?
You have a question about association, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I also saw Nandini Radha. Did you actually have a question as well? Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
I'll wait for my turn. Thank you.
Okay. So maybe I'll do, so what's the question that you have about associations? Then I'll answer Nandini Radha's question.
Yes. Just association, like, because it's so difficult, like in the material world, like we associate with so many people. So
Sorry, you have to
here,
speak
like,
a bit louder, please. Can you say that again?
Okay. Is it okay now? Is it better?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So association, like it's in material world, it's so difficult. We associate with so many people, like anywhere, like work, school, or anywhere we go. So just my understanding here, Prabhu, like so association is like you should not associate with their consciousness. We should be careful. We should not associate with their energy. Is that like that, or you should also avoid association? Yeah.
What it means by avoiding bad associations is that we do not allow the material values of a materialistic person to enter into our hearts.
Okay.
We don't accept the material values. Material values means the idea that the goal of life is to just try to have material enjoyment. The goal that the identity is that I'm the body. The idea that actually I'm the center of the universe and success means that everyone does what I want. All of these things. The reason why we don't accept them is because they're actually misconceptions. If you accept something that's not true, it causes you untold suffering. For example, let's say that you know, you've seen some advertising and it says if you buy this particular product, your hair will grow longer. Okay, so if they're lying to you, you buy the product, you pull into your hair, all your hair falls out. So what's happened is because you've accepted something which is untrue, you suffer. Therefore, the point that's made in the Shastra is that the root cause of all suffering is ignorance. So when we talk about not accepting bad association, it means we do not allow someone else's ignorance about life to enter into our heart. It's bad enough that they have that misconception, which means that they're suffering. But then if you take that misunderstanding also and accept it, then you suffer like they do, you see? So it's not necessarily that you're not around people, because let's say you go to work, unless you're working in a company which is completely devotees, that's, you can't, it's not that you can avoid being around physically other people, but it's a question of accepting or not accepting their material values. That's where life becomes really difficult. When I accept materialistic ideas which are not true, and when I accept things about reality, about myself, about my identity, which are not true, that leads to my suffering, And then we can understand the opposite is also true. When I accept the book Bhagavad, when I accept the scriptures, what they're saying, which is coming from Krishna, and which is a direct description of how the world really works, how reality really works. When I accept that, then the doors to Vaikuntha become open, because now I'm accepting the truth rather than accepting a misconception or a lie. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah.
That's what it means by association. You may be around, and and we should always have compassion for people. It's not that we look down on anyone, because we're all servants. We're all part of the same family, you see? But the best way the doctor serves the patient is not to become diseased like the patient, but to understand the patient does have a disease, and to make sure that you stay healthy and that you offer the medicine that you're taking that will help them too, you see? If I throw away my medicine because I see a sick person and I decide to get contaminated with their sickness, now there's two people who are suffering, not just one. Make sense?
Yes, yes, Prabhu. Yeah, and it's very nice. It's also an art, and as you said, like as a pure devotee association, we get to know how to deal with the people and how to
Yes.
associate, how not to associate with the material things. And even though you are in a group of people, by associating with book Bhagavata and person Bhagavata, all these things really helps. Yes, thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Hare Krishna.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, Mataji, please go ahead. Nandini Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. My humble obeisances to you, Prabhuji. So I wanted to ask this question that, when you've obviously talked about serving devotees, and that's how, we make our gateway to Krishna. But somehow I sometimes feel that, there is a fine balance that sometimes when you are serving with all your best intention, people take advantage of you. And I don't know if you have to come across this, but I genuinely have.
Yes.
And then I get into a situation where I feel that no, actually I have to say no, because what, this is definitely crossing the boundary. And but at the same time, I feel very, I feel weak as well, because I feel that I am saying no to a devotee, or I feel that I'm also worried that am I doing an aparadh here, that I'm not really serving a devotee. So I just wanted to advise how to keep that fine balance, and also how to get more confidence within myself where I can say no, because I think 9 out of 10 times I will say yes. And that one time when I do say no, where I can see that it's very clear that this is, someone really taking advantage of me, I really do struggle. I want to know how can I increase my confidence as well, and how to make that judgment that this is right or wrong. And how does Krishna sees this behavior of mine?
So there's there was a radio interview with one Prabhupada disciple, and the interviewer, who was not a devotee, said, "Oh, but religions, there's abuse in religion sometimes." And the response was, yeah, people abuse the traffic laws, people abuse the education system, people abuse so many things. Does that mean you should get rid of all the traffic laws because people abuse them? That means you should get rid of education because people abuse the education system? He said, no, so therefore it should be done properly. So what that means is, with devotional service, you should do it intelligently. You see? See, for example, often the way that devotional service is spoken of is as if it's something that's done to us. But we could flip the whole thing around and say, why not go and initiate a service? A service doesn't necessarily even mean cleaning something. It could be devotional service to say, let's start a sangha and read together. And let's say that we're concerned about people taking advantage. Okay, so the best defense is offense. So if I'm concerned about people, devotees who will take advantage, then what I can do is, instead, I can initiate a sangha where I go and ask the devotees who I trust, let's be in a sangha together, just our small group. You see? So you're doing service. See, service is not something that you just have to wait for. There's so much that needs to be done in Krishna consciousness, so much that needs to be done in our own life. And it's very, very important to never see ourselves as victims of circumstance. We should rather consider that our job is to proactively go and find that good association, go and find that service that will help us to become purified, and do it in the way that is actually best. So for example, if people take advantage of you, you've cursed that person, because Krishna now is watching that they're doing this wrong behavior, and then they'll have to get the reaction for it. So then we could think, okay, out of compassion for this person, I will serve, but I will do it in a way which is wise and which is balanced and which is not being taken advantage of. Yeah, but we're doing it because we have compassion for that person. I don't want to see that person suffer. They don't understand that if they exploit me, they will suffer. So because I don't want them to suffer, I don't allow them to exploit me. So that's the way to see it. Otherwise, we've caused them suffering by allowing that negative behavior as well. So don't wait for it to be perfect. You go and find a situation which is as good as possible for your service. But the other thing to bear in mind, two things. If you study and read carefully regularly, you'll have better sense of discrimination. That's the first thing. It will definitely give you more clarity. That's the first point. And then the second point about the service in Krishna consciousness is, what was the second point I was going to make? Yeah. The second point about devotional service is that the more we are conscious, the more we can understand what's going on. Yeah. The more we can see when things are in balance, when things are off balance. And when things are off balance, we can also build the confidence to address it. What Krishna does often is he'll allow people to not be balanced, and then they get burned. You know, something bad happens. And they say once bitten, twice shy. So if you've been exploited, you know, one time, the next time you'll be more careful and more discriminating about how you do the service, which is actually what we're meant to be doing. We're meant to engage in devotional service, but to do it intelligently. See? That's the point. And that's also how we surrender the intelligence. We surrender the intelligence by engaging the intelligence in Krishna's service. Yeah. So it's just to do the service and to do it sincerely and to do it wisely. That's the point. And then everything else will come from there.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That's really, really very well explained. Thank
No
you.
worries. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I like the
Are there any other
point.
questions?
Yeah, I don't see any questions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All rest to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for such a nice class. So I have a question, like when we have problems in our devotional service or in associating with other devotees, so I don't have that much intelligence to manage what's going on, how to do that. So what should be our prayer to get out of that type of situation?
Yeah. None of us by ourselves have that much intelligence, but we're not meant to rely on our own intelligence. Very simple, two simple things that we can do. Before we jump into a service, we can also get some consultation with our God brothers and God sisters and say, I'm thinking about doing this service. What do you think? You know, do you think it will be a good situation for me? And then they also, if they know the situation, they can advise. So the advice before we jump in is worth more than the advice afterwards. But even then, afterwards, we can also keep an eye, and then we report back to our God family, people that we trust. This is how it's going. This is good. I think this is a concern, and we can get advice. So at every stage in our spiritual life, we can get good advice, and that's how. So then, in other words, we're not reliant on at any point in our spiritual life. We're not reliant on our own intelligence only. Krishna's given us some intelligence, but he's given everyone some intelligence. Prabhupada said in one place that everyone has their own genius, you know. And it's the duty of the Krishna consciousness, you know, devotees to bring out that genius within everyone in service to Krishna, you know. So it's getting the advice before we jump into something, and also staying in touch with the devotees and discussing how things are going. That way we can always have the best possible outcome. Does that answer your question, Srimati?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I just want to tell you that your classes are very inspiring, and my son also get inspired from your classes. He wants to listen more to your classes. I like that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a SoundCloud.
Yes,
online. Yes. Yeah, so we have our classes there. But thank you.
Thank you.
And thank your son for me.
Sure. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we will finish the session. Okay, so yeah, so please have a look at that verse again. First Canto, chapter 2, text number 16. The verse in purple is a real fundamental secret that will change everything about our spiritual life if we follow it, and if we follow it consistently and sincerely. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you.
Srila Bhagavatam ki jai. Solis Chandramauli Maharaj ki jai. Janita Gopivanandi. Hari Hari.
Thank you.